Everybody, I will be doing a season preview for the game against Detroit tomorrow. I'm sorry this video is coming out so late, but I'm going to first go over the injury report real quick, which is for us, it's fairly small. It's only 2 players, with Rashad Hill being questionable with a knee injury, and then Sam Bradford obviously being out because of his non-contact bone bruise, which I'm still not entirely sure if I trust that. And then you have Detroit with a whole bunch of questionables. You have 2 guys out, which are Zach Karen, the guard, who we know very well, and then you have Dwayne Washington, the linebacker, who is also out due to a quad injury. Who they have questionable is Ezekiel Ansah due to a knee, Don Carey, the safety, due to a knee, Gerard Davis, the really good rookie linebacker they have, who's been injured. He's still questionable for a concussion/neck kind of injury. Kenny Golladay, another rookie player they have, he's a wide receiver. He is questionable due to a hamstring. Travis Swanson, a center, is questionable due to an ankle. And then you have Tavon Wilson, another safety, who's questionable because of a shoulder. So when you put that all into one, we're facing another kind of injured team for the most part. So some of my more key things I wanted to talk about was Barr versus Riddick, because he's their pass catching back. Now Barr was pretty much tasked with stopping Le'Veon Bell when he was being a route runner and a receiver out of the backfield, and that ended with 4 receptions for 4 yards. So I'm expecting Barr to kind of shadow Theo Riddick throughout this game. The other thing would be containing Matthew Stafford. You cannot let him escape the pocket and let him create first downs using his legs. He did it all too often last year, and that's one of the main reasons why we couldn't beat him last year. So if you have to rush him very cautiously, basically. You don't want to just come all out all the time, because if you don't feel your lane, he's gonna run, and you don't want that. And third thing I have is Keenum just not messing up. We cannot have Keenum mess up this thing at all. If Keenum messes, if we do not rely on Dalvin Cook to kind of move this offense, be the engine to it, then it could be an issue, just because Keenum will be Keenum. He will not play like he did last week every single week. He will be Keenum at times. We have to account for that, which means we have to win some games while he's not being so great. And so we just need him to not screw up the whole thing. And then another one I have is Reef against Ansah. I know Ansah was listed as questionable, and he's a little dinged up, but it's still the best pass rusher he's faced since coming into Minnesota. As far as I know, he's allowed just 6 pressures, Reef, via Pro Football Focus. So he's been a pretty phenomenal signing for us thus far. So I'm really looking for him to actually kind of live up to this contract against his former team. Not necessarily a Riley Reef revenge game or anything, but it is his former team. They know him, he knows them. So it should be an interesting matchup there. And then the most important key, probably, in this entire thing, situational football. Now, if it has to come down to a last-second field goal, and Matt Prater's coming out onto the field with about 5 seconds left, I do not like our chances. He is really good. So we just need to outplay them in that regard. Because if you look at our teams, I do think we have the better overall roster, although they have an edge at quarterback. So you don't really know which way that could go. That could go either way. So that becomes situational football. So that's what decides this game. Now, for what we can have success on them, what you saw was they have 2 safeties who are actually hurt, and I think we might be able to throw the ball on this team a little bit just because of that. I know they have Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs, who's actually a very under-the-radar good corner, but I do think we might be able to hit some things over the top on this team. So, especially if we're able to hit on the run game, which I know technically the Lions have the 12th ranked rush defense, but don't let that scare you at all. Really don't, because They allowed their first game was against the Cardinals. They allowed 45 yards. Now that would have been very impressive had David Johnson not gotten hurt. And then the Giants, they can't run the ball for anything, and they had 62 yards. So they have no offensive line, running backs hurt. And then they played the Falcons, and the Falcons just gashed them. They gashed them. They got 151 yards on the ground. So anytime they had to account for something else, it looked like we could really get the ball going. And as long as Thielen and Diggs are really rolling out and just balling, I think we might be able to get Cook some carries. And obviously, if they're not going to allow Cook to beat them, they have two safeties out. This could be the Diggs and Thielen show once again. So it's kind of. And as far as our rushing offense, by the way, that is the 11th ranked rushing offense. We have 345 yards total through 3 games, and we're averaging 115 a game. So if that's the case, we might really be able to run on this team and maybe move up those ranks a little bit if this is what I think it is, which is not a very much improved team, especially if Jarrad Davis is still not playing. Jarrad Davis makes this defense entirely different, and if he cannot go, they will have issues against the run game. So, and then obviously if we cannot really run the ball, it's not like we have no offense. We have the second overall offense as of right now. So that's not something we're used to seeing in Minnesota, obviously. We're used to last year, essentially, with the offense. It's very anemic usually. This is not. This is a different system. I'm hoping this is more of a system thing and not necessarily, so it doesn't matter which quarterback we necessarily have. Not that it won't matter, it still will matter at times, but I mean more of maybe the system is, if the pieces are in place, maybe the system can really work. So regardless of who's at quarterback, as long as he doesn't mess it up, maybe it works. And I'm kind of hoping for that. We haven't had that in so long up in Minnesota. But as for predictions go, I am gonna say that I think this game might be too much for Stafford to really come back in, because we're also talking about the so-called lazy Greg Robinson by Everson Griffin actually playing against Everson Griffin. So we're talking a first-round draft bust who is guarding a Pro Bowl caliber defensive end. So what does that leave you? Obvious passing downs? Stafford could very well just be on the run. So which could be good or bad. We've seen various scenarios where this is very good for that Detroit Lion team. So I still think, though, coming into US Bank Stadium with all the noise, everything that goes into that, I don't see Stafford being able to really make a fourth quarter comeback, just because he pretty much has been doing that, and that's how they win for the most part. If they have to make a fourth quarter comeback, we're probably going to win, because I think obvious passing down, Greg Robinson's a major liability. Whether or not that lazy comment is true, it's still true that he's a liability regardless of whether he is or he is not lazy. So I still think it's going to be close, though. I'm going to go 24-20 Minnesota here, just because I don't trust how that line situation is going to work out with Greg Robinson, especially if we start rotating people in and out of that end spot. But yeah, that's what I have to say. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at Brian_Spadafora, and I will say farewell for now.